In part 2 of lesson 5.7, we are going to develop the quadratic formula, or really what we're doing is proving why it is true. I already told you what it was and showed you how it works, but we want to know, why does this even work? So what we're going to do this, we complete the square to solve for x. Now this is going to get a little maybe complicated. There's going to be a lot of variables in here, but I'll go through step by step to show you why it works. So again, we're going to complete the square. So if you remember, when we completed the square, we would subtract c from both sides, because we want the x terms on the left side and the constant on the right side. So we have ax squared plus bx is equal to 0. I'm going to go ahead and put the quadratic formula over here just so you can see it kind of taking shape at some time as we work through this. So b squared minus 4ac over 2a. So this is what we're working toward. So see if you start to recognize some of these things as we go through. The next thing we did is we didn't want x squared to have a coefficient, so we would factor out an a. And this is where it kind of gets a little tough looking, but we're going to factor out an a. And if you remember, I told you when you factor something out, it's really like dividing each of these terms by that thing. So this one's easy. We factor out the a and we get x squared. Here we get b over a. It's like dividing by a times x. And so over here, I wrote this incorrectly. This is negative c. So we still have negative c here. The next thing we did is we added something to complete the square. And what we did is we take half of this. So b over a times 1/2. So we're going to add, and that would give us b over 2a squared. So we add that there. Now what did we really add? We added b squared over 4a squared, but that's multiplied by a out here. So we have to add something out here. So what I'll do, I'll just write like this first. So this thing that we just added is multiplied by a, so I'm going to add that to both sides. So I have to add it over here. So a times b over 2a squared. So let's just simplify that for right now. So when we complete the square, this is going to be x. It factors to x plus this b over 2a, the whole thing squared. And over here, this is going to equal, I'm going to put this second because the negative, so this is a, and we might take a few steps to finish this, times b squared over 4a squared. Sorry, that's a times that. And then minus c. Notice here this a will cancel with one of these. So this was a square down here. A cancels with one of these. So we have b squared over 4a. So here I see a b squared and minus something with c. With c in it. So moving on, our next step here, we're actually going to just keep working with this, and maybe I'm writing too many steps here, but this is x plus b over 2a squared equals, we want to add these together. How do we add things with a fraction? Well, we need to get a common denominator. This has a 4a. This is just c over 1, so let's multiply top and bottom by 4a. And once we do that, we have a common denominator of 4a, so we have b squared minus, and then c times 4a, well, that's minus 4ac over 2a. So this is a denominator of 4a. Now we need to get rid of this a, so we're going to multiply both sides by 1 over a. So 1 over a, which over here we multiplied that so it canceled. Over on the right side, we will have a common denominator. We'll multiply it, so we have x plus b over 2a squared equals this whole thing. So we have b squared minus 4ac all over 4a times a is 4a squared. To solve this, we need to take the square root of both sides. When we take the square root of both sides, we make sure we put plus or minus. Over here, the square root cancels with the squared, so we have b plus, or x plus b over 2a equals, and this is interesting here, we actually have a perfect square on the bottom, so we can write this as plus or minus the square root of the top, which is b squared minus 4ac, over the square root of the bottom. Well, the square root of 4 is 2, and the square root of a squared is a. And then the last thing we have to do is subtract b over 2a from both sides. So subtract b over 2a from both sides. And we have the quadratic formula. X equals, these do have a common denominator here, so we can combine them. And I'm going to put the negative b first. So we have negative b plus or minus the numerator of this one. So negative b plus or minus this, b squared, minus 4ac, all over the common denominator of 2a. And there it is. We showed why, and we developed the quadratic formula.